Are we sleeping tonight, Mother? In Father's grave?
Hello. Space. Yeah. Yeah, when I realized that space is just nonsense, fake, it was a little bit of a bummer, you know. I'd been a big fan of science fiction films. I love the idea of, well, I like the idea of the danger of space, for one thing, and the way it can also act in your favor, like as in sucking the alien from Aliens and Alien. If you remember, they both kind of went the same way. They were ejected into the vacuum of space. You'd think that would be the end of that, wouldn't you? But anyway, there's lots of them, obviously. Yeah, but there's none of them actually, because the ridiculous thing is about space and the Big Bang, which is so mad. It's just, come on, think about it, people. It's actually, they say, expanding, going faster. So an explosion, this is what they say it was, explosion. It's happening everywhere. So it's going out in a big wave, huge, it's infinite. So it's going out in a big wave. So we should all be traveling away from each other. That's what they say. Everything's traveling away from one another, except it isn't, because we're going to crash with Andromeda, on a collision course or something. What a load of in 4 billion years. What a load of nonsense. When the pole star hasn't moved in probably the last 1,000 years. So and well, forever. But that's the kind of records that dangle. So the Big Bang is bollocks. The fact that we came from it at all is bollocks, because it didn't happen. And the whole space nonsense is just cobblers. It's bollocks. It's fake. It's ridiculous to think that the Earth would be a tiny little bubble of air and rock and hot rock and hot molten iron and zinc, and just come on, just think about that. Just think about it as the size of a eighth of an inch ball bearing, and then put it in the middle of your room now, and then make that room infinite, and think what that thing has to cope with, and how it has to be to exist, to be the Earth. So it's got to be fucking hot right in the center, really fucking hot, and then it's got to be much cooler on the surface, so cool in fact that it freezes water. So we know the differences in temperature that I'm talking about. Very, very, very hot to very, very, very cold. But not that very cold that it gets in their space. So in their space it gets to absolute zero. Yet people could land and walk on the moon in both, when the sun doesn't shine on you, when you're in space, if you're in the shade of the moon, then you would freeze, and all your equipment would freeze. Any batteries that they say powers those 1960s space suits would freeze. And the other way around, of course, you'd burn in the sun. There's no atmosphere to guard you. This is all. It's difficult to tell you all this because it's all bullshit. Because there is no space. That never happened. Don't you see? It's. Oh, we had these suits that would do this. No, they fucking didn't. It's just a big lie. It's just a huge fairy tale. A Walt Disney production. And NASA and Walt Disney are the same thing. NASA is like Disney Max. It may do you harm if you did overindulge. In fact, steer clear of it. It's fucking lethal. It's bullshit. And Disney's bad enough. Come on. But we've all enjoyed the Aristocats, was it? Yeah, well, I did anyway. And Snow White and, well, Dumbo. Who doesn't like Dumbo when you're a child? Come on. So, they ensnare you. And it's the same with the films and the books and all the programming. The fact that Arthur C. Clarke invented satellites, and then in his own mind, in his head, he didn't build one. No. I mean a fictional thing called a satellite, and then they appeared. Wowie zowie, and satellites. They're so anomalous. They're everywhere, but yet they're nowhere. We never see one transit the moon. We have never seen a real photograph of a satellite, and some are geostationary, which means from the Earth they appear. They just hover in the same place, and the other ones don't. They go round in just like the fake station goes round, and so you can see it apparently go across the sky like a light, and that's apparently what it is. So, and there is a place called a Lagrange point where the satellites will how they say they're falling, but the Earth is falling that bit just it never hits the Earth because they're both falling. It's just fucking nonsense, people. It's nonsense. Yet the satellites are in this Lagrange point, yeah? And that allows some of them to stay where they are, and some of them to go around the sphere ball nonsense Earth. And there is also you must check this out if you haven't, a camera that's about 1 million miles away, orbiting 1 million miles away. And it's taken some fantastic pictures, photographs, time-lapse, of course, of the moon transiting the Earth from 1 million miles out. Yet, in the 5 hours, presumably, that it took the Earth, the moon to go across that, cover that much distance, nearly 5 hours it was, the cloud cover on the Earth didn't move. Now that's very strange, isn't it? And yet that's of course that's real. You see, it's all bullshit. The recent Japanese, a couple of years or so ago, I might have that quite wrong. It could be just a year ago. The Japanese sphere, similar sort of thing, but you could see that it was Japanese. Their art, their culture is in that sphere. There is a difference, you know what I mean. Japanese art is quite recognizable, I think. And in that sphere, that ball Earth, that cartoon, it is a Japanese cartoon. It has to have come from the Southeast Asian, Japanese sort of culture. That's where that you know what I mean. It's just flavored with it. It's actually it's the most beautiful thing, but it's not. It's fake. Of course, it's fake. Yeah. So look, you can still enjoy. Well, I can't actually. I can't enjoy Star Trek and Star Wars and all that anymore because to me now it's just propaganda. It in the same way as Arthur C. Clarke's satellites were kind of it's a setup, don't you see? Unless that was just a very very good idea from Arthur C. Clarke, which he did have, but he was a paedophile, and there's absolutely no question of that. And he was one of these. I'm sure he was part of this part of the master plan to make us all believe we're living on a spinning ball. Well, I think we did already believe, most of us, that in the Western world, certainly not around the world, all over the world, there are many cultures that know we're living on a flat Earth, and they haven't given in to the Western. Well, certainly in 20 years ago, that was true. So hopefully it's still like that in many places. It's a logical part of any person should get what I'm saying about this. The logical part, not the part that's been told this. Just forget about all that nonsense. Forget about it. For a time, you can analyze it and how stupid it is later, but you could also just set it to one side and try and find. You see, you've got explanations for everything. I understand that, and so I could tell you all about the heliocentric model to a point, and that was good enough for me. It kind of that's what people said. Okay, that's what was given to us on the news, on the BBC. So, yeah, I would go with that. Yeah, but no, and not anymore. For a look, it's propaganda. That's all it is. So you've got to set that aside and then try and find fault in the obvious, like the obvious thing, like I'm not moving. Am I spinning? No. Right. Then try and find fault in that. Oh well, why do we think we're spinning? Oh well, the sun and the moon actually move, don't they? You've got it. The sun and the moon actually move, and that's that. That's it. And the stars, they move. Yes. Now, the stars all move as one. The wandering stars, we used to call them planets, they move at separate times. And the sun and the moon as well, separate, but they move, we don't, you see. That's, you know that, really, don't you? You know that's right. When you look up, when you observe the moon moving across the sky at night or in daytime, you know it's the moon that's moving, not us. We're not spinning. No. we're static.